It was late evening when Jack heard the soft scratching outside his garage door. He thought it was the wind, until he heard a faint whimper. When he opened the door, his heart stopped. A pregnant stray stood there, soaked, trembling, her eyes wide with silent desperation. She limped forward and gently placed her paw on his boot, as if pleading, "Please, help me." Jack had seen stray dogs before, but never one that looked like this, like she understood every word he hadn't spoken. Then, she turned and started walking away, pausing to look back at him. Something told Jack to follow. What he discovered down that dark dirt road would leave him, and the world, speechless. The sun blazed over the small, dusty town, its heat shimmering off the metal roofs. Jack wiped his hands on an oil-stained rag, the rhythmic hum of his auto repair shop the only sound breaking the stillness. He was a man of few words, a mechanic who'd long stopped expecting surprises in life. But that afternoon, something unusual happened. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw a movement near the gate. Slow, trembling, uncertain that a stray dog limped into the sunlight. Her fur was matted, her ribs visible, and her belly swollen with pregnancy. She stopped a few feet from him, panting, eyes wide and pleading. Jack frowned. "Not today," he muttered, waving his hand to shoo her off. But she didn't move. She simply sat, tail tucked, staring at him with a look that pierced through his gruff exterior. Minutes passed. The sound of engines and clanking tools faded behind the weight of her silent plea. Finally, Jack sighed, setting down his wrench. "Fine," he grumbled, walking to the back to fetch an old bowl. He poured some water and set it down. The dog approached slowly, trembling with every step, and began to drink, long, desperate gulps that made Jack realize she hadn't tasted kindness or comfort in a very long time. For reasons he couldn't explain, Jack didn't send her away again. He just stood there, watching this fragile creature fight to survive, unaware that her arrival would change his life forever. But to his surprise, she was still there, curled up beside the garage door, her body trembling from exhaustion. When she saw him, she struggled to stand, wagging her tail weakly. Jack sighed, pretending to be annoyed, but deep down, a strange warmth stirred in his chest. He poured her some water again and placed a few scraps of leftover bread beside it. But instead of eating, the dog began pacing near the entrance, whining softly. Then, she did something unexpected. She grabbed the hem of Jack's work pants with her teeth and tugged gently. Jack froze. "Hey, what are you doing?" he said, trying to pull back. But her eyes, filled with urgency, made him pause. She tugged again, this time toward the road outside. Curiosity got the better of him. Jack followed as she limped ahead, her swollen belly swaying with each step. They walked past the gas station, down a dirt path that led to an abandoned shed behind the railway tracks. The air was thick with silence, until Jack heard it. A faint, pitiful whimper. He pushed open the creaky door, and his heart stopped. Beneath a pile of old rags lay 3 tiny puppies, their bodies cold and weak, barely breathing. The mother dog whimpered beside them, licking them gently, her eyes pleading once more. Jack understood now. She hadn't been begging for herself. She had been begging him to save her babies. Jack's heart pounded as he knelt beside the fragile little bodies. The puppies were shivering, their tiny cries almost too soft to hear. He could see they hadn't eaten in days, their ribs visible beneath paper-thin skin. The mother dog hovered close, her breathing ragged, eyes flicking from her babies to Jack as if asking, "Can you help them?" Without a second thought, Jack took off his jacket and gently wrapped the puppies inside. "Hang on, little ones," he whispered, lifting them carefully. The mother followed close behind, limping as she struggled to keep up. When they reached the shop, Jack placed an old blanket near the heater, creating a small, warm corner. He fetched some milk, poured it into a shallow dish, and watched as the mother weakly began to lap it up before nudging her pups closer. Jack's hands shook as he tried to keep the weakest puppy warm, rubbing its tiny chest. He didn't know what he was doing, but his instincts took over. The puppy whimpered softly, a sound so faint it almost broke him. The mother looked up at him and let out a low, exhausted sigh. Jack met her gaze and saw it. Gratitude, trust, hope. For the first time in years, he felt something shift inside him. This wasn't just about saving a dog and her pups anymore. It was about saving himself from the loneliness he'd built around his heart. The fight for their lives had just begun. Hours passed, and Jack didn't leave their side. The sound of wrenches and engines that usually filled his garage was replaced by soft whimpers and the mother's heavy breathing. He had turned off the open sign, something he hadn't done in years. This wasn't just another day at work. This was something bigger. The smallest puppy, the one he had feared wouldn't make it, twitched its tiny paws. Jack leaned closer, holding his breath. Slowly, the pup let out a weak cry. Jack smiled for the first time in days. "That's it. You're a fighter," he whispered, his voice trembling that he spent the next few days caring for them, bringing scraps of meat from home, using his heater to keep them warm through the chilly nights. The mother dog never left his side, always watching him, her trust growing stronger each passing day. By the fourth day, the puppies were finally nursing properly. Jack's coworker, Tom, stopped by and froze at the sight. "You're running a dog rescue now?" he joked. Jack just smiled and shook his head. Maybe I am." That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Jack sat beside the mother dog, watching her feed her pups. For the first time in years, the garage didn't feel empty. It felt like home. Days turned into weeks, and Jack's quiet garage became the heart of something beautiful. The once empty space now echoed with soft yelps, playful growls, and laughter, sounds Jack hadn't heard in years. The mother dog, whom he had named Daisy, followed him everywhere. Whether he was under a car or fixing an engine, she'd lie beside him, keeping watch like a loyal guardian. Word spread quickly through town about the mechanic who took in a pregnant stray. Customers began bringing food, blankets, and toys for the little family. Even Tom, his sarcastic coworker, secretly left dog biscuits on the counter every morning. Each day, Daisy grew stronger, her fur gleaming, her eyes brighter. Her puppies tumbled around the garage, turning oil cans and toolboxes into their playground. Jack couldn't help but chuckle when one clumsy pup got stuck in a tire rim. "You're just like your mom, stubborn," he said with a grin. The once lonely mechanic now had a reason to wake up each day. He'd thought he was saving a stray dog's life, but in truth, she had saved his. The garage that once smelled only of grease and gasoline now carried the faint, sweet scent of hope that a few months later, the garage looked completely different. The walls that once echoed with silence now displayed framed photos, Jack, Daisy, and the puppies. The litter had grown strong and healthy, and one by one, each found a loving home. Every adoption filled Jack's heart with bittersweet pride. But Daisy, she stayed. No matter how many families asked to take her, she never left Jack's side. Wherever he went, she followed, loyal and peaceful, as if she knew her place was already found. One quiet evening, as the sun sank behind the hills, Jack sat outside the shop, sipping coffee. Daisy rested beside him, her head gently on his lap. The golden light bathed them both, and for a moment, everything felt perfect. Jack whispered, "You came to me begging for help, but you're the one who saved me." Daisy looked up, her eyes glistening in the fading light, and placed her paw softly on his arm, a silent promise that she would never leave him again from that day on. The people in town no longer called him the lonely mechanic. They called him the man who believed in second chances, because one dog reminded him how to love again.